Hey Sainers, welcome to the Saints TV official mid-season review. We're going to have Judge Jaden on as a guest, and he's going to be talking with me and talking to you guys about how we've been going this season, the good, the bad, the ugly, the players that have performed, the players that have struggled, the injuries. We're going to talk about kind of where we're at with the season and where we think the season can go. So we'll just get Jaden on here. I think he's ready to go. Adding him into the live. Comment your thoughts as well, and how you think we've been going. And myself and Jaden will just kind of chat through it pretty casually, and get your thoughts once he's being added. Comment if you think we can make the 8. I'd like to know your thoughts on our run-in. Apparently, we've got the easiest fixture for the second part of the season, which is unlike us because we're usually getting very difficult fixtures, and particularly last year it was, I think, the hardest fixture in the league. But this time around, it's the complete opposite. We've gotten through a period of 4 weeks where we've struggled and played some really hard teams, some really good teams, going to China, getting sick. But now we've gotten through that, and with the bye, hopefully we can come back, stronger in the second part of the season, get players like Carlisle, Geary back in, 6 to 8 weeks, Jack Loney, who kind of had a breakout season, Jack Stephen coming back, Jimmy Webster, there's a bunch of them, Max King at Sandy, Hunter Clark coming into the team, Caulfield as well, Jack Bartel next year. So there's a bunch of players there that we're looking to bring in. I think Jaden's still being added to the chat. Let's try again. And then we can kick things off, but this gives people time to tune in and understand what we're trying to do. Matthew's already commented, but Jaden has taken ages to join. Let's just go through what Matthew thinks. If we can start converting when we get inside 50s, we definitely have a chance of making finals. That's definitely one of the negatives of the season, and we'll talk about it a bit more, is that we just keep bombing the ball and we just can't convert. I think, in terms of most teams, they get around 30 shots on target a game, and we average, I think, not much less than that, around 20 a game, and would be in a lot more games if we could kick straight, I'll tell you that. I think we average 73 points per game, and I think around the top 4 teams of what I read, they average around 90 per game. So really, when you look at it, we're only down probably 17 points, 3 goals per game, less than a top 4 team. So that says a lot already when we're not converting so many chances. So you can see that if we did start converting chances, we would really bridge the gap between the best and the worst, and our best and our worst. But we just haven't been managing to do that for season after season. I think the last 4 seasons we've kicked way more points than goals, and it's just a sign of lack of confidence. It's a sign of just taking set shots at really difficult angles and not being able to capitalize when we have shots in front of goal. And we've seen that. We saw that in China. We saw a passage, Jack Sinclair missing critical goals. Bruce Membry, even though Membry's kicked, I think, 21 goals, 7 or something this season. It's been very good. He just hasn't kicked enough goals, I don't think, and I don't think we've kicked enough goals. I don't think we've kicked 100 points all season. Have we, guys? I think our highest was 95, and that was against Melbourne, and then every other time since then it's been around 70 to 80 points, and on the weekend it was a lousy 69 points. So I'll go through some of these comments. I think Jaden's still on his way. 4 weeks struggle, try 6 years. David just starting off with the positives there for the season so far. Luke, he's saying, like to see Longer and Marshall both play together. I don't know about that. I don't think Longer or Pearce are going to get a look in anytime soon. And that brings me to last night's news. if you guys saw, Todd Goldstein is a player that apparently we might be interested in from North Melbourne. He's a free agent. And I'm just going to add Jaden in again. Apparently I can't. Very odd. 1 second, guys. Yeah, back to my point of Todd Goldstein. Would you consider someone like him? He's a free, so it doesn't seem like a bad choice. He's experienced. He's been an All-Australian ruckman. Sorry, guys, just technical problems for some reason. Trying to get Jaden on board because I don't want to keep talking this whole time. We want to get that dialogue back and forth. Got some more comments here. I don't think we are good enough for finals. I can see us winning 3 more games given our current form. Hopefully we can get a few players back and do better than that. But I'm not holding my breath. 3 games for the rest of the season based on our fixture, which I'll go through. I think that's a bit harsh. I think if we can get players like Carlisle back and Loney and Max King comes in. Sorry, I didn't even mention Dan Hanbury. Completely eluded me. There's some serious firepower there, and I think we've played our worst. I don't think we can play as bad as we played against Port. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Fingers crossed it does. I don't think we can play much worse as we did against Port Adelaide in China. So I think that's if you look at previous losses, when we lost to West Coast, we lost to Adelaide, Collingwood, we showed a lot in all those games. The Carlton game seems like a bit of an outlier. I don't think that we can judge our season so far on the Port game. I'd like to judge it more on the West Coast game or the Collingwood game where we played really good for 3 quarters and then dropped off. That's kind of our season in a nutshell, is that we play really good footy, but we also play it with really, really average footy, which doesn't win you games when you have to. Ian says, if Goldstein was available, I would trade him to Suns for Max's brother. Maybe that's the thing. Get him and then trade him to the Gold Coast to get Ben King, who is starting to play some good footy. Caroline says, great to get some players back after the bye. Do you think Ratton will be head coach in 2020? I don't know. Depends on the next couple of weeks. If we lose to the Gold Coast, unfortunately, guys, I don't think Jaden's joining. Sadly, it looks like some technical problem. So I guess you're just going to have to deal with me. But we'll just go through some of these comments and we'll just keep it pretty casual. I'll go through some of the players. I want you guys to tell me. So usually, in terms of, just to give you a lowdown, in terms of the review, in terms of previews, I'm doing all the talking. I'm ranting on about the players and what I think, but I want to hear more about what you think. So I want to see a lot of comments. I'm going to go through some of the players, and we can do that now. And I guess kick off with that and kick off with some of the positives. So I'm going to start off with the positives, and then we'll talk about individual players and kind of more broadly our players and how they're going. But I've categorized it into kind of breakout seasons so far and who's struggled, injuries, and who can break into the team from Sandy. For me, so far in the season, in terms of breakout seasons, I think obviously the pick is Rowan Marshall. I think he had his best game of his career in China. I can see him being a 10-year ruckman. He's got all the makings to be the next, and I'm not going to say, Grundy, but he's got the makings of it. The way he clears the ball from the centre bounces, he gets it, he just kicks it. He's a great field kick. He can run, he can tackle, he can mark, he can go forward. He was originally kind of planned to be a forward, but it never developed that way, and now we've used him in the ruck, and he's been the best ruckman we've had since probably Ben McAvoy when we gave him away to the Hawks. And we've tried with Billy Longer, we've tried with Louis Pearce. Bruce goes in there occasionally to pinch hit, but that's just not how it is. Rowan Marshall, breakout season for me, and he's been outstanding. The next one is Jack Loney. So he's been missing since about round 4, the Hawthorn game. I think it was the Hawthorn game or Essendon game. Jack Loney, a player that last season was on the edge of just kind of being pushed out. No one really liked him. I struggled to see the benefits in having him in the team, but I think He's really come home. I think he signed a 2-year deal. He's really fought hard for his position in the team. And funny now that, he's injured, we can see the forward line pressure just drops off a little bit, with Matty Parker, Ben Long, Robbie Young, Gresh going in there. Loney was hungry and he played every game like it was his last. And we need more blokes like that for the second half of the season if we want to do well and if we want to challenge for finals. I think he's only about 3 or 4 weeks away, so we could get him back, before round 17, 18 would be amazing, and get a good month into him before the end of the season, see how he goes. The next one is Billings. I know that some people still think he's not the A-grader that we want him to be, but I think it's hard to deny that he hasn't had games this season that have shown his talent, him getting 30 possessions. Watch his second quarter against Collingwood a few weeks ago, and it's one of the best field kicking performances you'll see. Every time he got the ball, he nailed the pass. And some of them were easy passes. Some of them were just ridiculous leads that he could see and just create angles on the ball that not a lot of players know how to do. So I'm going to say that he's had close to a breakout season. He showed, bits and pieces in 2017, 2018, but he hasn't put it all together. And I think so far, if you look at his averages, they're all up. They're all in the elite or above average spectrum. I think he's had a breakout season. Here's a controversial one, so don't hate me on this, but Dan McKenzie. Dan McKenzie, I think, has been hard done by a lot of people here, including myself at times, but God, he is a brilliant mark. He can make some mistakes under pressure, like a lot of players, even the best players do. But I've not seen a lot of players in our team, apart from Geary and Webster, run back with the flight of the ball, put their body on the line as many times as Dan McKenzie's done. If he can fix his disposal, he's got the marking power, he can tackle, he can run, he's got speed, he's young. There's a lot there that a coach can work with, and you can see why they play him. And with a Geary out of the team, Webster out of the team at the moment, there's players like McKenzie that are looking to step up, and I think he's done that, along with Cal Wilkie, along with Brown, along with Josh Battle. Sorry, I've got to put him in my list of breakout seasons. Absolutely breakout season for him at centre-half back. Another player like Marshall that was kind of destined to be a forward prospect that we wanted. We've put him into a new position. He's cherished it, and he's been very, very good at it. And I can't see why we can't play Battle in the back line with Carlisle when he comes back. I think that's a match made in heaven. Could you imagine the intercept marks we get with Carl and Battle there? That'd be unreal. So for people that are saying push Battle forward or play Carlisle forward, no. I want our backline to be rock solid, because every good team starts at the back. West Coast do it with McGovern and Hearn. Collingwood do it with Jeremy Howe. Geelong do it with a lot of very good players back there. So Josh Battle, breakout season for me. The other one's Dunstan. Now, let me know if you agree on this, but I think that Dunstan, he's one of the rare players that he's been dropped and he's come in and he's put the foot down. A lot of players get dropped, they get good possessions, come in, have one good game and then drop off. Dunstan's been consistent ever since he was dropped in around round 5 or round 6. He's come back and he's had a month of 25 plus possessions. His disposal's been better, he's getting more of it, spending a lot of time in the guts. He seems like he's more comfortable in his position and his skill. And he's tackling hard every week. And that's exactly what you want from a guy like Dunstan, who's built like a tank. You want him to use it. And I think he's come in and he's done a great job since being dropped. The last one, I think, in terms of breakout season, I haven't got Jay Gresham there, because I think Gresh, he broke out last season. He's just lifting on it this season and adding a bow to his strength, his skill set, if you will. He's gone into the midfield and he's doing well there, but I think his breakout season was last season in the forward line, kicking close to 50 goals. I think what he kicked 35, 36 goals for the season. In a struggling team is excellent. That's a breakout season for me and in anyone's books. But this season, more midfield, getting more of the ball. And the last one here is Jack Steele. Steely has just gone up a level. He's tagging. He's getting a lot of his own ball. He's taking on the best midfielder every week, but he's doing a great job of that. Tackling, I think he's ranked 4th in the AFL for tackles, so he sets the barometer in terms of pressure, and he's one of the leaders. I think he can be a captain of the club in the next 2 or 3 years, or maybe even after Geary, depending on how Geary goes in the next year or two. who's struggled? Who we thought, could come in and have a big season and didn't and hasn't really so far. Jack Nunes started the year on fire. The first month, I thought, shit, he's turned the season around. The last month really let me down. He's dropped off. He's, I don't know what you guys think about Nunes, but is he trade bait still? He's just let me down. Good month, dropped off. The one that's really stood out to me is Ben Long. Just has all the workings to be a very good gun small forward. Does one good thing a game and then drops off. He doesn't do enough for long enough. And I can see, in the second half of the season, he might struggle to get into the team because I see guys like Nick Hind getting a go and he's just got a lift. I mean, there's competition for spots in that forward line and him doing one good thing every week is not going to be enough to keep him in the team. The other is Billy Longer. Comes in, doesn't do enough. I think he played round 1 or round 2 the last time we saw him. And he played against... when did he play? Against West Coast, I think. And that was when Rowan Marshall was sick and laid out. And then he came in and got absolutely dominated. I think it was by Vardy for West Coast. And, you just can't see him being at the club beyond next year, to be honest. I think if we get someone like Todd Goldstein to play with Rowan Marshall, you absolutely don't need Billy Longer. And it's a bit harsh to say, but I think we all expect it. The other one is Pearce. I think, he looked good in pre-season, but ever since he's played, just hasn't done it. And it's hard to see anyone really getting into this team ahead of Rowan Marshall, to be honest. So you could be a decent ruckman, and I would still say probably not good enough at this point. And the other one is Hunter Clark. Dominating Sandy so far. I mean, everyone calls out for him to play, and I agree. I want him to play more games, but based on what I've seen at AFL level, he has struggled. He has coped with the pace of the game. He gets a lot of the ball at Sandy, and he just struggles to match it with the big bodies in midfield in the AFL. I don't know if it's mainly just because he's not big enough, but it just, he leaves a lot to be desired when he comes in. You want him to be that midfield class like Del Sano, that we had 10 years ago, and he's got all the makings of it. He can kick left foot, he can kick right foot, he can do the clever things. He looks like he's in slow motion when he gets the ball, but sometimes he's too slow, and he gets caught, and he's small, and he's easy to tackle, and players love to pin guys his size. So I think he needs another big preseason next season, but I think we need to give him a consistent run in the second half of the season to see what he does. In terms of injuries, it's been a shit season for us in terms of injuries, and it's affected a lot of games and a lot of results, but you lose. This is our list, and no one talks about it. No one in the media talks about the amount of players we're missing. They talk about Geelong, they talk about Collingwood, they talk about Melbourne. I'm sick of hearing about all those excuses. Hawthorn as well. We've got Carlisle, we've got Dylan Robertson, McCartan, 2 players there that probably won't ever play again. Jaron Geary coming back and re-injuring himself, out for the next 8 weeks, broken leg. Loney, he's been out for the last 8 weeks. Jack Stephen, indefinitely because of mental health problems. Webster, great kick out of defence. He's been missing. There's 7 players there. Max King's been injured. 7 or 8 players there from probably our best 18 that are missing. Nearly half the team. How many? Carlisle definitely starts. Dylan Robertson in the backline, hands down. McCartan's pre-season, he looked incredible, definitely playing. Jaron Geary, captain, had an awesome first 6 weeks before getting injured. Jack Loney, amazing first 3 weeks before getting injured. Jack Stephen, notably our only A-grade player of the, in the team right now, apart from Dan Hanbury, a fit Dan Hanbury, and Seb Ross, maybe Seb Ross. Actually, he's one who I would say has struggled as well. And then you got Jimmy Webster. That's a huge list. Not to mention Max King's had a delayed season and he's starting to get going now. Hopefully we can see him in the second part of the season. And then we get Hanbury back, who's been injured. So there's 8 or 9 there that I think on paper start in our best 18, let alone best 22, and they're not playing. So if we can get more than half of them back in the second half of the season, we've got, in terms of our fixture, we'll go through it. In terms of our fixture, actually, let's do that now. We've got Gold Coast after the bye. That's a win. That's got to be a win. No joke. Then you've got Brisbane. That's going to be tough. Then you've got Richmond, going to be tough. North Melbourne, the way they're going to be tough. Geelong and Geelong. Just bookmark that down. That's going to be potentially ugly. I don't know. We never go to Geelong and do well. Every time we go there, and I've watched, we're close to a 100-point loss. Then we've got the Bulldogs. We've got Melbourne. Very winnable. Adelaide. In Adelaide, very tough, but they're not as good as they have been previously. Then you've got Fremantle in Melbourne. They just beat Collingwood in Melbourne, so it doesn't look easy. Carlton, we've already beaten, and Sydney a bit up and down. So it's a tougher draw than it looks, but I think if we can get players back, we can fix a few things, convert more going forward. That's potentially enough to get close to finals, guys. We're 5 and 6. We probably need 11 wins, probably 12 with our percentage, but it's possible. I think it's possible. Let's go back to Sandringham, and who I think plays a big part in the second half of the season for Sandy. I think it's easy to say Max King. Max King has kicked, I think, 7 or 8 goals in 3 or 4 weeks for Sandy. He's getting more consistent in his form. He's not afraid to run into packs now. He's over his injury completely. His set shot kicking is amazing. I haven't seen him shank too many, so he's clearly tidied that up. Nick Hines, another one that I think has a chance to come in and debut, which I'm surprised he hasn't even done that yet. Clavanero, another backman that looks good. And then obviously the last one who debuted on a weekend, not really a Sandy player, but he's playing for Sandy, is Dan Hanbury. So if we can get Hanbury back, get Max King into the forward line, get Carlisle back into the back line, maybe Jack Stephen and a fit Jack Loney in the forward line, you cover all bases. Back line, immediately strengthen. Midfield, Hanbury, Stephen, maybe Nick Hind coming in, immediately becomes very strong and bats deeper than it does now. Then you've got the forward line with Membry, Bruce, Max King. Marshall can drift there if we have players going into the ruck, that becomes very strong. Webster coming back into the forward line there. That's exactly what you want moving into the second half of the season. But when I do say we are 5 and 6. And at that point, let's just go back and let's look at those games and maybe where we fucked up, where we could have done better, where we did amazingly, and let's look at those highlights. So, round 1. Going into this game, we've got the Gold Coast. We beat them by a point. Fucking ugly game. Not a game that you go back and watch. But we got the point. That was a big step in the right direction. Then we play Essendon in round 2. Everyone talking about Essendon, who got flogged in round 1 to GWS. Them, they came out, I was expecting breathing fire, but no, we started on fire. We led by like 30 points in the first 25 to 30 minutes of that game. Nearly coughed it up and then got away late. We won by 11 points. 2-0. Then we go to Perth, where we'd not really performed that well. And we start slow, 30 points down. And we lose to Fremantle by 5 points in the end, where we probably should have won it. We had the better 3 quarters. We only stuffed up because of that first quarter, where we conceded like 4 of the first 5 goals and had to chase from that point on. Then we play Hawthorn, who were 2 down on the bench. Who gives a crap? And we beat them by 5 points. We go 3-1 there. Then we play Melbourne at the MCG, and we like playing Melbourne at the MCG. We seem to always beat them there. This by far is the highlight of the season. This by far is the most complete game of football we've played in close to 2 to 3 years. Go back and watch it. We were incredible from the first bounce. We win by 40 points and we go 4-1 and announce ourselves as if we're turned a corner. And then we play Adelaide at home. Expected to win. We lose by 5 goals. Then we play GWS away. They're on fire at the moment. A 44-point loss there actually doesn't look too bad. Come back to Melbourne, play the reigning premiers, West Coast. Kind of struggled, had our chances. We lose by 18 points. Puts us back to, I think this was 4-3. 4-3 or 4-4, can't remember. Then we play Collingwood the MCG. The first 3 quarters of that game were almost reminiscent of how we played against Melbourne, but just Collingwood defended better, so we didn't get that lead. But I thought going into the last quarter, we had a big chance of doing that, and we got annihilated. We dropped off. We got annihilated. That put us at, I think it was 4-5. And the following week we play Carlton. Probably the ugliest game of the season, along with the round 1 Gold Coast game. Don't watch it. We just got the points and we move on. That's all we need to talk about there. And then last week we fly to China. half the team gets bloody sick. The coach gets sick. We bring in underdone Geary who gets injured again. And we lose by, 70 points. We lost by 70 points. And that's where we are right now, 5-6. So that is the first half of the season in a nutshell. A lot of positives, more positives than negatives. But I think it just sets up a very interesting second half of the season for Alan Richardson. If we lose to Gold Coast after the bye, it's going to be tough for him to keep his job. We need to win that game. We need to go 6-6, come back to Melbourne and play the Brisbane Lions, which could be an absolutely huge game because they're 5th on the ladder right now. And that if we win that game, we move on to Richmond in Melbourne. We go to 7-6. Geez, we're looking at finals. North Melbourne, and then we've got Geelong, Bulldogs winnable, Melbourne winnable, Fremantle in Melbourne's winnable, Carlton again, Sydney again. There's 5 winnable games there, not to mention Adelaide in Adelaide. 6 or 7 winnable games there. Let's go through some of these comments very quickly. I might wrap it up. I don't want to keep you guys. It's been a good chat, but Frank says, get off Nunes' case. He's been consistent. Long isn't good enough, says Frank. Long's not the only one, says Ian. Cooper says, Ben Long, Joyce should never play again. Very harsh, based on one season. Frank says, our best chance of succeeding in the next couple of seasons is to fortify each line with one quality player in the back line. It's Carlisle. In the back line, it's in the middle, it's Hanbury. In the forward line, it's Max King. Completely agree. Carlisle, Hanbury, King is a good starting spine right there, without even mentioning Jack Stephen and Seb Ross. I agree, Cooper. Also add Jonathan Marsh in the back line. What about Stuv? Is he going to make it back? He would probably make us 2 goals better. I think he will. He says that, I think he's told the club that he wants to play the second half of the season, so we might well see him back in Melbourne against Brisbane. Stephen's not an A grader. He's always been a B+. Well, he's a B+ to the outside world. He's an A grader to the Saints world because he's our best player. And the best player is an A grade player. For a St Kilda player, he's A grade. For an AFL player, he's a B+, if that makes sense to anyone out there. Compare Stephen to Goddard, Hayes, and Del Sano. He doesn't hold a candle to those guys. Not comparing him to those guys, but he's the best we've got right now. I'd say Richo is out at the end of the year, says Glenn. I would say Stephen is better player than Goddard. Richo will stay if they only miss out on finals by percentage. If we fall a couple of games short, he's gone. Fraser says Goddard was only a top player for maybe 2 to 3 years, and geez, how good was he for those 2 to 3 years, guys? Come on. I would take a peak, player for 2 to 3 years compared to an average player for 10 years, any day of the week. I feel Stuff has played his last game for the Saints, unfortunately, says Timmy. Don't forget, he had the captaincy at Essendon. I think everyone's talking about Goddard still. I don't know how Goddard came into this. And will Hind debut this season? Yes, I think Hind will debut this season. Just a matter of when. I think after the bye would be good on the Gold Coast, see how he goes, give him a run against a lesser team, and then play him for an extended period along with Hunter Clark, get Max King in. Geez, the highlight for the second half of the season is going to be Max King debuting with the number 12 running out again and seeing the number 12 take a mark on the lead and kicking a goal again. It's just going to be a good vibe around the club. We need that. We're 5-6, so, not all is lost, and there's a big chance of us still making finals. We just got to pull our fucking finger out. Fraser says, thoughts on Josh Bruce's future? I think, he can do some amazing things. His mark against Essendon was ridiculous. His game against Melbourne was pretty boss, kicking 3 or 4 goals. He just does some big things, but then he does some stupid things and looks way off the pace. But I think he stays. He's that sort of player that at his best can be very good, but his worst can just be non-existent. His past 2 or 3 weeks, absolutely non-existent. His first month, excellent. Dave says Mayo looks very good off the bat. A guy from Perth, drafted as a forward. I don't think he debuts anytime soon, just unless we drop Josh Bruce and bring in King and Mayo. But that's a lot of tall forwards, so I think we're going to have to get him up to speed at Sandringham and then see how he goes, bring him into the team. Bo says, what is your thought on Brad Scott coaching at St Kilda? Don't really want Brad Scott at St Kilda unless it's like an assistant role. But I just would rather focus on keeping Brett Ratten. And if, someone like a Carlton or North goes for Brett Ratten, that might force our hand. We might have to act on that and bring Brett Ratten in as a senior coach because we don't want to lose him in any way, shape or form. Marcus says so many games we should have won, could have won, which means we didn't have a soft draw. We aren't taking chances and inside 50s hurt us. The most I don't really remember the last time we kicked 100 points. It's a very good question when the last time that was. Daniel says Bruce needs to go back to the back line this season. His best marks have been along half back. As soon as he's in the forward half, he freaks out. Too bad about Paddy. He was ready to bust open our forward line. Don't think we'll ever see him again. That's just sad news. Brad Scott and Brett Ratten as coach and assistant coach. I'd rather have Brett Ratten as the main coach and Brad Scott on the side. But, I don't know. A lot of people don't really rate Brad Scott, but I think, he had a good few seasons at North, and they still had a few decent wins this season prior to him getting the sack. Is it folly to compare this year to last? 2018 was such a low base, and when you look at it, we're probably still a little worse than 2017. So I say bye-bye Richo. I say give him the next 6 weeks. If we're well out of, if we've lost to the Gold Coast and North and who else have we got? Bulldogs in the next 6 weeks, I think he goes. If we win all those games and we're still in the chance for finals, he stays. That's my thoughts. I might wrap it up there, guys. It would have been good to have Jaden on board. We'll try and organise that another time, maybe post-season review, just to get some collaboration going, just so I'm not ranting and talking the whole time. But mid-season review, what would you rate it out of 10? What would you rate our season so far out of 10? I'm going to go with 5. I'm going to go 5 out of 10. Maybe a 6. I think we've done better than expected, but there's still a lot of room for improvement, and I don't want us to continue to revert back to last season's form because it looks like that way. We started well, but we've moved away from that possession game. We've moved away from that playing it slow and steady game and just bombing, and that's the biggest letdown. Is fucking bombing to our forwards and them just getting outnumbered every week and us scoring less than 70, 80 points every week. Not good enough. But I think with our draw, again, I'll just quickly repeat it. We've got Gold Coast, winnable. Brisbane, winnable. Richmond, I'd say that's winnable. North, winnable. Geelong, give that a loss. Bulldogs, winnable. Melbourne, winnable. Adelaide, give that a loss. Fremantle and Melbourne, winnable. Carlton, again, winnable. And then you finish with Sydney, who've been up and down. That's 9 that I would deem 8 at the least winnable games. If we play well, we're in all of them. We only play one top 4 team for the rest of the season, and that's Geelong. We play, I think, 6 of the bottom 8. So there's a big chance for us to make finals there, guys. So if we can get players back, big second half of the season. Let's keep it going. Keep your comments coming. I'll respond when I can. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Again, sorry Jaden couldn't tune in. There was some technical problems, but we'll try and organise that for next time. I'll see you next Thursday for the preview leading into the Gold Coast game. Keep the likes, comments, shares coming, and I'll see you soon. Go Saints.